What if you could become a confident, captivating public speaker in just a few months? Does it sound impossible? I'm on an ultra-learning mission to find out just how far I can get in 90 days, and I'm documenting all of my biggest wins, mistakes, and every strategy that I'm using along the way. So whether you want to improve your own communication skills or you just want to see if ultra-learning works, you're in the right place. It's only been 2 weeks so far, but here's what my ultra-learning practice schedule has looked like. 3 days a week, I practice out loud at home, and I work on things like my vocal techniques, my body language, practicing vocal archetypes, and improv. And what improv looks like for me is pulling up a random word generator, picking a word, and then trying to speak for a couple of minutes, 2 to 5 minutes, on whatever that word is, coming up with things off the top of my head. I finish those few minutes, go to another word. And then once a week, I have been live streaming a workshop where I just create an outline for myself and then I speak off my notes. And finally, once a week, I have a Toastmasters meeting. These last 2 weeks, I brought home some shiny new awards. Well, one of them is shiny and the other one's matte. In the first week, I won the Best Table Topics Award, and Table Topics is a lot like what I do at home with the random word generator, where you're given a prompt and then you have 2 minutes to speak off the top of your head on whatever that prompt is. In the second week, I won the Most Humorous Award for my table topic, and I really wasn't expecting this because I don't consider myself to be a very funny person, but I know that humor is a skill, and so one of the things I'm working on in this ultra learning journey is figuring out how to be funnier and practicing that. So the other reason I wasn't expecting this award is because when I got up that night, I tried to tell 3 different stories at the same time, which went really poorly. I rambled, I went overtime, but at least I was funny. On the subject of missteps, during week 1, I completely forgot to do a record and review, so I did it on the first day of week 2. And when I finally did it, I noticed some things that were not going so well. For starters, my pitch and volume were very flat, and I did notice that I have really good use of hand gestures, but I often look off camera when I'm thinking of what to say. And I noticed that my favorite filler word is so. But I wouldn't have noticed any of those things if I hadn't recorded myself. So if you are looking to learn communication skills, recording yourself is ridiculously uncomfortable, especially in the beginning, but it's also ridiculously useful. The moment that I realized I forgot to do my record and review was when I did my weekly review at the end of week 1 using the prompts in Scott Young's Ultralearning book, and so many light bulbs went off. It was so helpful. A really big thing that I noticed is that I have a pretty clear idea of how to practice communication skills, but not how to become a public speaker. So there's a pretty big gap there that I need to fill. And one of the things that Scott suggests is interviewing successful learners. So I thought of a few people who I know who I look up to as speakers that I can ask, how did you get there? A pattern that I noticed that I'm not a big fan of is that if I don't know exactly what I'm practicing, I tend to waste a little bit of time and get distracted. So that's a place that I can find some more efficiency. A couple of the things that I uncovered in that weekly review that I can turn into practice steps are interviewing people who have become public speakers. I also noted that I wanted to add in some memorization practice. I want to practice more deliberately in conversations because that's where I'm a little bit more casual and my ums go a little bit crazy. And finally, I want to get more feedback, more honest, direct feedback, because without it, I'm the blind leading the blind. During week 2, I made kind of a big mistake. I realized that there were 2 whole days that I just completely forgot to practice because I didn't put it into my schedule. So I got to the end of the day and realized I hadn't done anything, but I did that twice. So lesson learned there. And this time, at least, I got to make up the time over the weekend. My week 2 weekly review was also really helpful. Big thing that I noticed is that it's really important for me to get up and speak in front of people in person. I know it's kind of an obvious thing, but I've been speaking for so long to the camera, streaming live in workshops and things like that, that it felt like, oh, I can do this. But it's quite different when you actually get people face to face. It poses a little bit of a challenge though, because I don't know where to find people who will just sit and be an audience for me for a couple of minutes each week. I noticed that I am doing a good job of focusing on my weaknesses. The biggest one is being able to just speak off the top of my head. So that's the random word generator practice that I'm making sure to continue doing. And another big gap that I really want to fill is doing short form improv. In my local area, which is very small, There's not a lot going on, so there are some classes starting in January, but there's nothing really for me now. And finally, a big thing that I realized in week 2, as I mentioned earlier, is that I want to use this process to learn how to become funnier. And so that's something that I have started doing some research on, is how to learn humor as a skill. So why am I sharing this with you? It's because public speaking isn't just about giving motivational speeches. It's about being heard. It's about showing up in a way that makes people want to listen. And as you learn how to do that, you don't have to do it alone. And it's communication skills, so you probably definitely shouldn't do it alone. One more thing before I go, do me a favor and drop in the comments one thing you want to master, because I would love to hear about your ultra learning goals and what skill you'd like to add so that you can live not just a good life, but an excellent one.